1884, Sagebrush Flats in Indian Territory. The hailstorm hit without warning, and now Sadie Dalton stood in the doorway of the fort's supply shed, watching ice the size of walnuts destroy what little crop the settlement had managed to grow. She pressed her palm against the rough timber frame and counted the losses in her head. Without those crops, the families who had promised to back her school would have nothing left to give. The town meeting was supposed to happen tonight, but now everyone was trapped in whatever shelter they could find, waiting for the storm to pass. Sadie turned when she heard boots scraping on wood behind her. A man she had never seen before leaned heavily against the doorframe, his left arm wrapped in blood-stained cloth that looked days old. His face was pale beneath the stubble, and his eyes held the kind of calm that came from seeing too much trouble.
I am looking for a place to rest. I can pay.
His voice was quiet and steady, despite the obvious pain. Sadie took in the Stagecoach Company insignia on his vest, and the way he kept his right hand near his holster, even while injured.
You are a guard.
Was. Perry Reed. The stage I was riding got hit 3 days ago. I took a bullet meant for the passenger.
Sadie gestured for him to come further inside.
Sit down before you fall down. I have clean bandages.
She moved quickly to the corner where she kept her sewing supplies and pulled out a roll of cotton cloth she had been saving for quilting. Perry lowered himself onto a wooden crate and watched her with those steady eyes.
You are not afraid of me.
Should I be?
Most people see a man with a gun and blood on him, and they make assumptions.
I see a man who took a bullet for someone else. That tells me enough.
She knelt beside him and began unwrapping the soiled bandage. The wound was clean, but deep, and it needed proper care.
This will hurt.
Everything hurts. One more thing will not make a difference.
Sadie worked quickly and efficiently, cleaning the wound with water from the barrel and wrapping it tight with fresh cloth. Perry did not flinch once.
You need rest and food. I have a room in the back of the seamstress shop across the way. You can stay there until the storm passes.
Why would you help a stranger?
Because I know what it is like to need help and have no one offer it.
Perry studied her face for a long moment.
What is your name?
Sadie Dalton. I am a seamstress. I am also trying to build a school for the children here if I can convince the town to back me.
That is a good thing to do.
It will be, if I can make it happen. But with the crops destroyed, I am not sure anyone will have the money to spare.
The hailstorm battered the roof above them, and Sadie helped Perry to his feet. They crossed the muddy yard together, dodging the worst of the hail, and reached the small wooden building where she kept her shop. Inside, the air smelled of fabric and thread. She led him to a narrow room in the back with a cot and a small table.
Rest here. I will bring you something to eat.
Perry sank onto the cot and closed his eyes. Sadie returned to the front room and began sorting through the fabric scraps on her work table. Her mind raced with calculations. Without the crops, families like the Hendersons and the Clarks would be struggling. The town meeting tonight would be a disaster. She was still thinking when the door burst open and a man in a fine suit stepped inside, shaking hail from his hat. Hawthorne Kincaid owned the only bank in Sagebrush Flats, and he had a smile that never reached his eyes. He was a patient man, intelligent and calculating, and Sadie had learned to be cautious around him. The banker looked around the shop and nodded slowly. Mr. Kincaid said he had heard about her school plan and thought it was admirable. He said he might be willing to help fund it if she could provide some collateral. Sadie thanked him, but said she preferred to keep the town involved directly. Kincaid's smile thinned, and he said that was unfortunate, because several families owed him money, and he would need to call in those loans soon. He tipped his hat and left, and Sadie felt a chill that had nothing to do with the storm. She went back to check on Perry and found him sitting up, alert despite his exhaustion.
There is a man in this town who makes me uneasy. Hawthorne Kincaid. He owns the bank.
I know that name.
Sadie stopped.
You do?
The passenger I was guarding on the stage, he worked for a land office. He told me there was a scandal brewing. Someone had been forging claim paperwork and selling false deeds. He said a banker in Indian Territory was behind it.
Kincaid.
He never said the name, but he was carrying documents that could prove it.
Where are those documents now?
Gone. The men who attacked the stage took everything. The passenger did not make it. I barely did.
Sadie sat down on the edge of the cot.
Kincaid just came here. He told me he is calling in loans. If he is using forged paperwork, he could take everything from the families here.
That is exactly what he would do. Force them out, claim the land, sell it to the next wave of settlers.
We have to stop him.
How? I have no proof. Just the word of a dead man and my own memory.
Then we find proof.
Perry looked at her with something close to admiration.
You are either very brave or very foolish.
I am desperate. These families need that school. They need hope. Kincaid is taking that from them.
The storm outside began to ease, and the hail turned to heavy rain. Sadie stood and paced the small room.
There is a telegraph office at the fort. If we can send a message to the land office, maybe they can confirm what your passenger told you.
That could work, but Kincaid will be watching. He knows I survived the attack. If he finds out I am here, he will come for me.
Then, we move carefully.
She brought him bread and dried meat, and they ate in silence while the rain drummed on the roof. Sadie felt the weight of what they were planning. If they failed, Kincaid would destroy the town. If they succeeded, they might have a chance. She looked at Perry and saw the same determination in his eyes.
Why did you take that bullet for the passenger?
Because it was the right thing to do. Same reason you are helping me now.
Sadie felt something shift inside her chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with the room's temperature. She pushed it aside and focused on the task ahead.
We will wait until dark. The rain will cover our movement.
You do not have to do this. You could stay safe.
I am not the type to stay safe when people need help.
I noticed.
The hours passed slowly. Sadie checked Perry's bandage again and was relieved to see no fresh bleeding. He was strong, and his calm presence steadied her nerves. When the rain finally softened to a drizzle and the sky turned dark, they prepared to move. Sadie wrapped a dark shawl around her shoulders, and Perry checked his revolver. They slipped out the back door and moved through the shadows toward the fort. The ground was slick with mud, and hailstones still littered the paths. Sadie kept close to Perry, trusting his instincts. They reached the telegraph office without incident and found the operator dozing at his desk. Perry woke him gently and explained they needed to send an urgent message to the Territorial Land Office. The operator rubbed his eyes and agreed. Perry dictated the message carefully, asking for confirmation of any investigation into forged land claims tied to Sagebrush Flats and requesting immediate response. The operator tapped out the message, and they waited. Minutes stretched into an hour. Seti felt the tension coiling tighter with every second. Finally, the telegraph began clicking, and the operator scribbled down the reply. He handed the paper to Perry, and his face went pale.
They confirm an active investigation. Hawthorne Kincaid is the primary suspect. An agent is en route, but will not arrive until the next train in 2 days. They advise caution and warn that Kincaid is considered dangerous.
2 days. He could destroy half the town by then.
We need to keep this quiet until the agent arrives.
But as they stepped out of the telegraph office, they found Hawthorne Kincaid standing in the muddy yard, with 2 men flanking him. The banker's face was calm, but his eyes were cold. Kincaid said he had been watching the telegraph office and wondering who might be sending messages at this hour. He said it was unfortunate that Perry had survived the stage attack, because now things had become complicated. He gestured to his men, and they drew their guns. Kincaid explained that the cave mine north of town had been very useful for hiding inconvenient bodies, and he saw no reason to change that practice now. Perry moved faster than Sadie thought possible for an injured man. He drew his revolver and fired once, hitting the gun out of one man's hand. The second man lunged forward, but Perry sidestepped and struck him hard with the butt of his gun. Kincaid stumbled backward, and Seti grabbed a heavy lantern from a nearby post and swung it at him. The banker dodged, but lost his balance in the mud. Perry kept his gun trained on all 3 men, and his voice was steady as a river.
You are finished, Kincaid. The land office knows everything. An agent is coming.
Kincaid wiped mud from his face and laughed bitterly. The banker said it did not matter because he still had the forged documents, and he could destroy them before anyone arrived. He said the families would still lose their land, because no one could prove his paperwork was false. Perry glanced at Sadie, and she saw the frustration in his eyes.
What if we find the original documents? The real claims?
They would be at the land office records room. But that is 200 miles from here.
Or they might be wherever Kincaid keeps his own records.
Kincaid's expression flickered, and Sadie knew she had guessed right.
You kept copies. To make sure no one could challenge you.
Perry gestured with his gun.
Where are they?
Kincaid said nothing. One of his men groaned and tried to sit up. Perry motioned for Sadie to step back, and she moved toward the telegraph office. The operator had come to the door and was staring wide-eyed at the scene. Sadie called to him.
Get the sheriff. Tell him we have proof of land fraud.
The operator ran. Kincaid realized his options were shrinking, and his calm facade cracked. The banker said the documents were in a locked box in his office safe, and no one could access it without the combination. He said he would burn everything before he let anyone take it. Perry looked at Sadie, and she saw the question in his eyes. She nodded once.
Then, we go get it now.
They forced Kincaid and his men to walk ahead of them through the muddy streets toward the bank. The rain had stopped completely, and a few people emerged from their shelters, drawn by the commotion. Seti saw familiar faces, families she had sewn clothes for and shared meals with. They watched in silence as the group passed. At the bank, Perry made Kincaid open the door and light a lamp. The interior smelled of paper and leather. Kincaid moved slowly to the safe, and Perry kept his gun steady.
Open it.
Kincaid hesitated, and Sadie stepped forward.
You can open it and face a trial. Or you can refuse and we will find another way. Either way, you lose.
Something in her voice made Kincaid flinch. He turned the dial, and the safe clicked open. Inside was a metal box. Perry reached in and pulled it out. Kincaid lunged forward, but Perry was ready and struck him across the jaw. The banker fell and did not get up. Seti opened the box and found stacks of documents, all neatly organized. She scanned the top pages, and her heart pounded.
These are the real claims. With the original signatures and dates. He kept everything.
Evidence. The sheriff arrived with 3 deputies and took Kincaid and his men into custody. Perry handed over the telegraph message and the documents. The sheriff looked grim, but relieved. He said the territorial agent would handle the formal charges when he arrived, but in the meantime, the evidence was secure, and the family's claims were safe. Seti felt the weight lift from her shoulders. Outside the bank, a small crowd had gathered. Word spread quickly in a settlement this size. Sadie stood on the wooden steps and raised her voice.
Hawthorne Kincaid has been arrested for land fraud. The real claim documents have been recovered. Your homes are safe.
A cheer went up, and Sadie felt tears sting her eyes. Perry stood beside her, his presence solid and reassuring. Someone asked about the school, and Sadie smiled.
We will build it. Together.
The crowd began to disperse, people talking excitedly and making plans. Sadie turned to Perry and saw exhaustion etched into his face.
You need to rest.
I need to make sure you are safe first.
I am safe. Thanks to you.
You did most of the work. I just provided the gun.
You provided more than that.
They walked back to her shop in silence. The mud squelched under their boots, and the air smelled fresh after the storm. Inside, Sadie lit a lamp, and Perry sat down heavily. She checked his bandage again, and was relieved to see it was still clean.
You should stay here until you are fully healed.
I do not want to impose.
You are not imposing. You saved this town. You saved my dream.
I did what anyone would do.
No. You did what a good man would do.
Perry looked up at her, and something passed between them. Something unspoken, but undeniable. Sadie felt her pulse quicken. She had been alone for so long, focused entirely on her work and her plans. She had not allowed herself to think about anything else. But now, looking at Perry, she felt a door opening inside her heart.
I have nowhere to go after I heal. The stage company will not rehire me after losing a passenger.
Then stay. Help me build the school.
I know nothing about building schools.
You know about protecting people. That is what a school does. It protects the future.
Perry smiled. A real smile that reached his eyes.
You are a persuasive woman, Sadie Dalton.
I have to be.
Over the next 2 days, the territorial agent arrived and took formal statements. Kincaid was transported to the nearest territorial court for trial. The forged documents were destroyed, and the real claims were filed properly. Families began to breathe easier, and the mood in Sagebrush Flats shifted from fear to hope. Seti spent her days organizing the school effort and her evenings with Perry. They talked about everything: their pasts, their losses, their dreams. Perry told her about growing up in Missouri and losing his family to a fever outbreak. He told her about taking the stagecoach job because it was the only way he knew to keep moving and not think too much. Sadie told him about learning to sew from her mother and losing her parents to a wagon accident when she was 16. She told him about working her way west and finding Sagebrush Flats and deciding it was a place where she could make a difference. One evening, as they sat together in her shop, Perry reached across the table and took her hand.
I need to tell you something.
What is it?
The passenger I was guarding, the one from the land office, he gave me something before he died. A telegram. It arrived too late to save him, but he made me promise to deliver it if I survived.
Perry pulled a folded paper from his vest pocket and handed it to Sadie. She unfolded it carefully and read the faded text. Her breath caught.
This is from a law office in St. Louis. It is addressed to me.
I know. I recognized your name when you introduced yourself. I have been carrying it for 3 days, trying to decide how to tell you.
Sadie read the telegram again, her hands shaking. It said her uncle, a man she had not seen since childhood, had passed away and left her a sum of money. Not a fortune, but enough to fund the school and more. The lawyer was trying to locate her to settle the estate.
I had no idea. I did not even know he remembered me.
He remembered. And now you have the means to build your school without needing anyone's backing.
This changes everything.
Does it?
Sadie looked at him and saw the question in his eyes. She set the telegram down and covered his hand with hers.
It changes the school. It does not change how I feel about you.
How do you feel about me?
Like I have found something I did not know I was looking for.
I feel the same.
They sat in silence, hands clasped, and the world outside seemed very far away. The next morning, a second telegram arrived at the fort. The operator brought it to Sadie personally. She opened it and read the message from the St. Louis lawyer, confirming the details and asking for her response. Perry stood beside her, reading over her shoulder.
You could go to St. Louis, collect the money, build a school anywhere you want.
I could. But I want to build it here.
Why?
Because this is where I found home.
Perry pulled her close and kissed her forehead.
Then I will help you build it. The town meeting happened a week later. Sadie stood before the gathered families and explained the plan. With the inheritance money, she could build a proper schoolhouse with desks and books and supplies. She could hire a teacher. The children of Sagebrush Flats would have an education. The families cheered, and several men volunteered to help with the construction. Perry stood at the back of the room, watching Sadie with pride. After the meeting, they walked together toward the edge of town, where the land for the school had been marked out. The ground was still muddy from the storm, but new grass was already sprouting.
It will be beautiful.
It will be, because you made it happen.
We made it happen.
I just followed your lead.
You did more than that. You gave me courage.
Perry stopped walking and turned to face her.
Sadie, I am not a man with much to offer. I have no land, no money, no family. But I have this.
He pulled a small carved wooden bird from his pocket. It was rough, but recognizable. A sparrow in flight.
I made it while I was healing. I am not good at words, but I wanted you to have something that shows how I feel. You are like this bird. Small, but strong, always moving towards something better.
Sadie took the carving and felt tears slide down her cheeks.
It is perfect.
Will you let me stay? Not just to help with the school, but to be part of your life?
Yes.
They stood together in the muddy field and the sun broke through the clouds, casting long golden rays across the prairie. Seti felt the future open before her, full of possibility. She had come to Sagebrush Flats with a dream, and found something more. She had found Perry. The weeks that followed were filled with hard work and laughter. Perry healed completely, and threw himself into the school construction. He had a talent for carpentry that surprised everyone, including himself. Seti spent her days organizing supplies and her evenings planning lessons with the teacher they had hired. A young woman from Kansas who had jumped at the chance to work in the territories. The schoolhouse took shape, slowly but surely. Walls rose, a roof went on, windows were installed. The children watched with wide eyes and asked 100 questions. Seti answered every one patiently. She felt a deep satisfaction watching the dream become real. One afternoon, as she and Perry were painting the front door, a rider arrived with news. Hawthorne Kincaid had been convicted and sentenced to 20 years in territorial prison. The families whose land he had tried to steal were now secure. Justice had been served. Perry set down his paintbrush and looked at Seti. The relief on his face mirrored her own.
It's over. Really over.
Perry said quietly.
Yes. Now we can focus on building instead of fighting.
Seti replied, dipping her brush back into the paint. They worked in comfortable silence for a while. The only sounds the soft swish of bristles and the distant voices of children playing. Perry cleared his throat.
I've been thinking about what comes next.
What do you mean?
Seti asked, glancing at him.
Well, the school will be finished in a few weeks. You'll have your dream. I was wondering what my place is in all this.
Sadie set down her brush and turned to face him fully.
Your place is wherever you choose it to be. You've done more for this town than anyone. You saved lives. You helped bring a criminal to justice. You're building this school with your own hands.
That's not what I'm asking.
Perry stepped closer, his hazel eyes intense.
I'm asking where I stand with you, Seti.
Her heart raced. She had felt the pull between them growing stronger every day, but neither had spoken of it directly.
You stand right here. With me. If that's what you want.
It's all I want.
He reached out and took her hand, paint-stained and calloused from work.
I never expected to find this. To find you. I was just passing through, doing a job. And then, everything changed.
For me too. I came here with a plan, a purpose. I thought that was enough. But you showed me that there's more to life than just checking boxes off a list.
Perry smiled, a rare soft expression that made him look younger.
So what do we do about it?
We keep building. Together.
Seti said simply.
Then, I have a question to ask you properly.
Perry reached into his vest pocket and pulled out a small object. It was a ring, simple and silver, with a tiny turquoise stone set in the center.
I bought this from the trading post last week. I've been carrying it around, waiting for the right moment. I don't know if this is it, but I can't wait anymore. Sadie Dalton, will you marry me?
Sadie felt tears spring to her eyes.
Yes. Yes, Perry. I will.
He slipped the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly. Then he pulled her close and kissed her, gentle and sure, full of promise. When they finally broke apart, Sadie laughed through her tears.
We're going to scandalize the whole town.
Let them talk. I don't care.
Perry grinned.
Besides, we're respectable now. You're building a school. I'm an honest working man. We'll be the most boring couple in Sagebrush Flats.
Somehow I doubt that.
Sadie replied, but she was smiling. They finished painting the door as the sun began to set, casting the schoolhouse in warm golden light. The building stood solid and real, a testament to perseverance and community. But for Sadie, the real victory was standing beside her, his shoulder brushing hers as they worked. The following weeks passed in a blur of activity. The schoolhouse was completed just in time for the start of the fall term. Sadie organized a grand opening celebration, and the entire town turned out. Tables were set up in the street, laden with food and drink. Musicians played fiddles and guitars. Children raced around in excitement, eager to see their new school. Perry stood beside Sadie as she gave a short speech, thanking everyone who had contributed time, money, and labor. She spoke about the importance of education and the future they were all building together. When she finished, the crowd erupted in applause. The teacher rang the school bell for the first time, and the clear, bright sound carried across the prairie. Perry squeezed Sadie's hand.
You did it.
We did it.
She corrected him. That evening, after the celebration had wound down and the last guests had drifted home, Sadie and Perry walked slowly back toward the boarding house, where she rented a small room. The night was cool and clear, stars scattered across the black sky like diamonds.
I keep thinking about that telegram, the one that arrived too late.
Sadie said softly.
What about it?
If it had come sooner, would things have been different? Would we have met?
I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not.
Perry stopped walking and turned to face her.
But I do know this. I believe some things are meant to happen, no matter what. We found each other, Sadie. That's what matters.
You're right. I just wonder sometimes about all the little moments that led us here. If the stage had been on time, if the hailstorm hadn't trapped us all together, if you hadn't been wounded.
If Kincaid hadn't been a lying murderer.
Perry added wryly. Sadie laughed despite herself.
When you put it that way, it sounds absurd.
Life is absurd, but it's also beautiful.
He tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear.
And you're the most beautiful part of mine.
They stood there in the quiet street, holding each other close. Two people who had come from different paths and found their way to the same place. The wind whispered through the sage, carrying the scent of rain and earth. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote called out, its voice lonely and wild. But Sadie felt no loneliness. She felt complete. The wedding took place 3 weeks later, on a crisp autumn morning when the leaves on the cottonwoods had turned gold. It was a simple ceremony held in the new schoolhouse, with the whole town in attendance. Sadie wore a dress she had sewn herself, cream-colored with delicate embroidery at the cuffs and collar. Perry wore his best suit, dark and well-fitted, his hair neatly combed. The traveling preacher who served the region's scattered settlements performed the service. He spoke about love and commitment, about building a life together in a hard land. When he asked Perry if he took Sadie to be his wife, Perry's voice rang out strong and sure.
I do.
And when the question came to her, Sadie answered without hesitation.
I do. They kissed as husband and wife, and the room erupted in cheers and applause. Outside, Someone fired a gun into the air in celebration, the sharp crack echoing across the prairie. The reception was held in the street again, with more food and music and dancing. Sadie danced with Perry until her feet ached, then danced some more. She felt lighter than air, as if she might float away if Perry wasn't holding her steady. As the sun began to set, they slipped away from the party and walked toward the little cabin Perry had been building on a piece of land just outside town. It was small, but sturdy, with a good roof and a stone fireplace. He had worked on it every spare moment, determined to have it ready for their wedding day.
"Welcome home, Mrs. Reed,"
Perry said, as he opened the door for her. Sadie stepped inside and looked around. The cabin was simple, but cozy, with a bed in one corner, a table and chairs by the window, and a rocking chair near the fireplace. Curtains she had sewn herself hung at the windows. A quilt her mother had made years ago lay folded at the foot of the bed.
"It's perfect,"
She breathed.
"It's just the start. We'll add on as we need to. Maybe a second room. Maybe more."
"Maybe more?"
Sadie turned to look at him, one eyebrow raised.
"Well, if we're blessed with children someday."
Perry said, a slight flush creeping into his cheeks. Sadie smiled and crossed the room to wrap her arms around him.
"I'd like that. A whole house full of little Reeds running around, driving us crazy."
"Teaching them to read and write in your school."
"Teaching them to be strong and brave like their father."
Perry held her close, his chin resting on top of her head.
"I never thought I'd have this. A home. A family. Someone who sees me as more than just a hired gun."
"You were never just that. Not to me."
They stood there, in the gathering darkness, the fireplace crackling softly, the world outside quiet and still. This was where they belonged. Together. The rider came closer, and Sadie recognized him as one of the clerks from the land office. Her heart began to race. What now? What new trouble was coming their way? The clerk dismounted and tipped his hat to them both. The clerk explained that there had been one more discovery in Kincaid's papers, a deed to a mine that Kincaid had never registered properly. The territorial judge had ruled that since Kincaid was convicted and the deed was fraudulent, the mine now belonged to the family of the man whose body had been found there. That family turned out to be Perry's distant cousins, people he had lost touch with years ago. They had sent word that they wanted to sell the mine and split the proceeds with Perry, in gratitude for his role in bringing Kincaid to justice. The amount was substantial. Enough to expand the school. Enough to buy more land. Enough to secure their future for years to come. Sadie stared at the clerk, then at Perry, then back at the clerk.
"Are you certain?"
The clerk nodded and handed Perry an envelope with official seals. The clerk said the money would be transferred within the month and rode off into the twilight. Perry opened the envelope slowly, his hands steady, but his eyes wide with disbelief. He read the letter twice, then handed it to Sadie. She read it herself, her heart pounding. It was real. All of it was real.
"We can build more than one school. We can build a whole network across the territories. Teachers. Books. A future for every child who wants one."
"We can do so much good."
Sadie whispered.
"We will. Together."
Perry pulled her close and kissed her forehead. They stood on the porch as the stars began to appear, one by one, in the darkening sky. The wind carried the scent of sage and fresh earth. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled. Seti felt the weight of the past lift away completely. The fear, the uncertainty, the loneliness, all of it was gone. In its place was a deep and abiding peace. She had come to Sagebrush Flats with nothing but a needle and thread and a promise. She had found a town that needed her, a cause worth fighting for, and a man worth loving. And he had found her, a woman who saw past his scars and his silence to the goodness underneath. They had fought together, bled together, and won together. Now, they would build together. The schoolhouse was only the beginning. Seti looked up at Perry and smiled.
Let's go inside. It's getting cold.
In a minute. I just want to stand here with you a little longer.
So they stood together under the stars, wrapped in each other's arms, the future stretching out before them like the endless prairie. Full of possibility, full of hope, full of love. The months that followed were a blur of activity. The mine sale went through without a hitch, and the money arrived as promised. Perry and Sadie immediately set to work on their plans. They hired builders and carpenters and began construction on a second schoolhouse in a settlement 2 days' ride to the west. Seti traveled there often, meeting with families and organizing supplies. Perry went with her every time, unwilling to let her make the journey alone. The roads were still dangerous, and he would not take chances with her safety. The original schoolhouse in Sagebrush Flats flourished. The young teacher from Kansas proved to be excellent, patient and creative and beloved by the children. Sadie visited often, bringing new books and materials, answering questions, offering encouragement. She also discovered she was pregnant. The realization came one morning when she woke feeling queasy and exhausted. She told Perry that evening as they sat by the fire. He stared at her for a long moment, then broke into the widest smile she had ever seen.
A baby. We're going to have a baby.
Yes. Are you happy?
Happy doesn't even begin to cover it.
He pulled her into his lap and held her gently, as if she were made of glass. Sadie laughed and swatted his arm.
I'm not going to break, Perry. I'm just pregnant, not dying.
I know. I just want to take care of you.
You always do.
The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Seti continued her work as long as she could, then reluctantly stepped back to let others take over the day-to-day tasks. Perry was attentive to the point of being overbearing, constantly asking if she needed anything, if she was tired, if she was comfortable. Seti bore it with good humor, knowing it came from love. Their daughter was born on a clear spring morning, with the help of the midwife and 2 women from town. Perry paced outside the cabin like a caged animal, until the midwife finally called him in. He took one look at the tiny red-faced bundle in Sadie's arms, and tears filled his eyes.
She's perfect.
She is. What should we name her?
I was thinking, maybe Grace. After your mother.
Grace Reed. I love it.
Sadie whispered, stroking the baby's soft cheek. Perry sat beside them on the bed, one arm around Sadie, one finger gently held in Grace's tiny fist. He had never imagined this. A wife, a child, a home filled with love and laughter. He had spent so many years drifting, moving from job to job, town to town, never staying anywhere long enough to put down roots. And now here he was, anchored and content, and happier than he had ever thought possible. The years passed in a blur of happiness and hard work. Grace grew into a bright, curious child with her mother's green eyes and her father's stubborn determination. 2 more children followed, a son they named Thomas and another daughter they named Emma. The cabin was expanded twice to accommodate the growing family. The schools continued to thrive. By the time Grace was 5, there were 4 schoolhouses operating across the territory, all funded by the community and supported by families who believed in education. Sadie's dream had become something larger than she ever imagined. Perry took on work as a deputy marshal, a position that allowed him to travel less and stay close to home. He was respected throughout the territory as a fair and honorable man, someone who could be trusted to do the right thing even when it was difficult. The shadows of his past never fully left him, but they no longer controlled him. One summer evening, as the sun set in brilliant shades of orange and gold, the family gathered on the porch of their home. Grace was reading aloud from a book, her younger siblings listening with rapt attention. Perry and Sadie sat in the rocking chairs Perry had built years ago, watching their children with quiet contentment.
Do you ever think about that first day? When you arrived, wounded and desperate?
Sadie asked softly.
Every day. Best thing that ever happened to me. Getting shot.
Perry Reed, that's a terrible thing to say.
It brought me to you. Brought me home. I'd take that bullet 100 times over if it meant ending up here.
Sadie reached over and took his hand.
I'm glad you didn't have to. Once was quite enough.
Fair point.
They sat in comfortable silence, listening to Grace's voice and the chirping of crickets in the grass. The air smelled of dust and sage, and the faint sweetness of the wildflowers Sadie had planted around the porch. Life in the territories was never easy. There were droughts and harsh winters, sickness and occasional violence. But through it all, Perry and Sadie faced everything together. They had built something solid and true, a partnership grounded in respect and love and shared purpose. When trouble came, they met it head on. When joy came, they celebrated it fully. And always, always, they chose each other. Years later, on a crisp autumn day, Sadie stood at the window of the original schoolhouse and watched the children streaming in for the morning lessons. The building had been repaired and expanded, the roof replaced, new desks built. But the spirit of the place remained the same. A place of hope and possibility. Perry came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist.
What are you thinking about?
How far we've come. How much has changed.
And how much has stayed the same?
Yes. That too.
She turned in his arms to face him.
I love you, Perry Reed.
I love you too, Sadie Reed. Always have. Always will.
They kissed. A soft, gentle kiss full of years and memories and promises kept outside. The children's voices rose in laughter and play. Inside, the teacher rang the bell to call them to their lessons. Life continued, steady and good. Perry and Sadie walked hand in hand back toward their cabin, taking the long way around through the town. They passed the general store, where the owner waved and called out a greeting. They passed the saloon, where a few early drinkers sat nursing whiskey. They passed the land office, where honest claims were now processed fairly under new management. Sagebrush Flats had grown considerably since that terrible hailstorm years ago. More families had settled, More businesses had opened, and the fort had expanded its operations. The town had a real sense of permanence now, no longer just a collection of tents and temporary structures. It was a community, a place people called home. As they reached the edge of town, a train whistle sounded in the distance. The railroad had finally come through 2 years earlier, bringing with it increased commerce and connection to the wider world. Sadie still remembered the first time she heard that whistle, how it had filled her with both excitement and a strange melancholy. The territories were changing, becoming more settled and civilized. In some ways that was good. In other ways, something wild and free was being lost.
You miss the old days sometimes, don't you?
Perry asked, reading her thoughts as he so often did.
Sometimes. But I wouldn't trade what we have now for anything.
Neither would I.
They stopped at the small cemetery on the hill overlooking the town. Perry's father was buried here, along with several others who had died during the difficult early years. They stood quietly for a moment, paying their respects.
Do you think he would have approved? Of us, I mean.
I think he would have loved you, and he would have been proud to see what we've built.
I wish I could have met him.
Me too.
They turned and headed home, the sun warm on their backs. Grace and the boys would be home from school soon, hungry and full of stories about their day. Seti would make supper while Perry checked on the horses and finished mending the fence he had been working on. It was an ordinary day, unremarkable in most ways. But it was theirs, built on a foundation of trust and courage and love that had weathered every storm. As they reached the cabin, Perry pulled Seti close one more time.
Thank you.
For what?
For seeing me. For believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. For choosing me.
Always, Perry. Always.
The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in shades of gold and amber. The wind carried the scent of sage, and the distant sound of the train pulling into the station. And in their small cabin on the edge of the territories, Perry and Sadie Reed stood together, knowing that whatever came next, they would face it side by side.